Manchester United will be desperate to stop the doomsday scenario of having to watch Manchester City win the title on Saturday. City need a victory to secure the trophy at the Etihad when the two teams face one another. They have only been held to a draw 3 times all campaign and lost just once. But there are ways Jose Mourinho can stop his rival Pep Guardiola from earning the ultimate victory against him. Sportsmail has put together a guide for how United can stop City on Saturday. Play like Liverpool. No one at Old Trafford will want to hear this. But the best way to stop Manchester City is to take a leaf out of their arch-rivals' playbook. Jurgen Klopp's philosophy is often boiled down to the catchy heavy metal football. What that actually stands in for is the less than pronounceable G-gen pressing. In English, it roughly translates to counter-pressing. That means pressing a team when they are on the transition from defense into attack. That is generally when a mistake is most costly. Defensive players are trying to get forward in order to support a hypothetical counter-attack. Attacking players are starting to make runs to ensure those supporting players have someone to work the ball to. And that's particularly damaging in City's case. Their fullbacks push incredibly high up the pitch when attacking, so they have to switch on to a counter-attack almost immediately after an opposition move breaks down. If the passing machine can be stopped at the right moment, which involves a lot of risk and potentially a lot of reward, it can leave City with just their central defenders and Fernandinho holding the fort. Wednesday's win may have sent shockwaves across Europe, but the Premier League match at Anfield, City's first notable defeat of the season, also provided important examples. For both Alex Oxlade-Chamberlain's and Sadio Mane's goals, City lost the ball as they were starting to build up attacks. In both situations, Roberto Firmino for Oxlade-Chamberlain's, Mohamed Salah's for Mane's, a forward won the ball back high up the field. Their decision-making was then utterly ruthless. Quick passes or dribbles exploited the lack of defense on City's part and gave Liverpool the opportunity to score. For Mane's goal, City only have John Stones between Salah and the goal. Fernandinho is trying to get back but struggling. Mane is busting along on the left to get forward. Kyle Walker is out of position. The left back is nowhere to be seen. Neither can reasonably expect to have an influence on this phase of play. Again, on Wednesday, the opener does not happen unless Firmino instinctively tries to win the ball back in the box. Few strikers would. And only City and players like Walker would think to take a touch rather than booting it away immediately. Guardiola will have taught them that building up from there is an ideal situation in which to spring a counter. Oxlade-Chamberlain's goal is another example of this. James Milner wins the ball up as City try to run out. The midfielder is in acres of space because City have not reset into a defensive phase. Leroy Sane even takes one step up the field after Oxlade-Chamberlain takes possession. He has a chance to shoot and takes advantage. It may not be in Mourinho's locker to play this way. It requires a humongous amount of coaching and a willingness to take a punt. City can still get around this system. But there's a reason why Klopp has Guardiola's number, which means using Sanchez as a striker. Alexis Sanchez has not been at his absolute best since he joined Manchester United. Even so, he is the only player in their squad who can help them replicate what Liverpool do and did against City. Firmino is key to Liverpool's approach. To have a striker that is so willing to sacrifice himself for the team is integral to Klopp's entire outlook. There is a reason why he is the forward who has made the second most tackles, 45, in the Premier League this campaign. That is what is needed to disrupt City and counter-press them. And the Chilean has shown his ability to do what his fellow South American does. He's the 6th highest ranked forward for tackles 120. In the league. Which would mean using him instead of Romelu Lukaku, who has only won 3 tackles all campaign, suggesting he is not the man for the job. Anthony Martial, 14, and Marcus Rashford, 10, probably are, though they would be the right people to flank Sanchez with, 2 forwards in the top 30 tacklers who have the capacity to stop the City passers at the most dangerous possible moment. Or park the bus and hope for the best. City have also struggled in games against teams who simply park the bus, although only one of those led to an unexpected victory. Wigan managed the shock of the FA Cup when they knocked out Guardiola's team, although they did benefit slightly from Fabian Delph's sending off. Few still would have expected them to beat the 10 men, but they did so through a show of utter defensive discipline. Every single Wigan outfield player could be found within a single box on the field when City went forward, ensuring they had no space to play the passes to carve a team open that they love so much. This is more along the lines of what Mourinho likes to do, and is probably the formation he will go with. But be warned, Rafa Benitez's Newcastle tried the same and they were eventually picked off. Ditto the majority of teams that have visited the Etihad this campaign. There's a difference between a one-off result and a trend. Take advantage of psychological blow. Mourinho is always characterized as a master of football's dark arts, and there will be no better opportunity to cast a spell over Guardiola than this weekend. City and their manager will be suffering after getting it so wrong on Wednesday night. The Etihad will demand a fast start and will become frustrated if hints grow the title will not be theirs by the end of Saturday. Mourinho W. Could have success by ensuring he wins the pre-match war in the eyes of the media, heaps pressure on Guardiola and makes City's players go into the game with too much of a mental burden on them. Exploit the left-back problem. It is really easy to forget that amid City's utter domination of the Premier League, they have been without one of their key summer signings. Benjamin Mendy was brought in to deal with a problem position at left-back, and over the opening weeks of the campaign it seemed as though Guardiola had made the perfect pick. He then got injured and has not featured since the 5-0 demolition of Crystal Palace. Another summer signing, Danilo, filled in initially, but there are flaws with him playing on the left of the defense. For one, he is right-footed. That is not necessarily a hindrance, but it is when City play as they do. They need their full-backs to stretch the pitch going forward. Defensive solidity is arguably not as important as what those players do in attacking moments. It can be seen here against Crystal Palace. Yes, Danilo is tracking his man. Even so, he should be shuffling further wide to drag Townsend out to the left. That would create gaps between Palace's midfielders for the creative dynamos in the middle for City to exploit. So the only spare full-back is generally jettisoned in favor of other players. One of those, Fabian Delph, is an excellent example of Guardiola's ability as a coach. The reality is that the former Leeds and Aston Villa man has always had the raw skill set required of a left-back. No one has brought it out of him before. Few would have expected him to play this much football under Guardiola. He will ultimately go down as a key cog when they secure the title. But that does not mean there have not been issues with playing this midfielder as a defender. So much of defending comes with years of work. Delph has had to take up the role on the hoof, and Guardiola cannot iron every defensive lapse out of his game over a 9-month season. It was seen twice in the last game against United. The first led to the goal. He misjudged the high ball into the area and failed to intercept it. That meant Marcus Rashford could latch onto the pass and score. It ultimately meant very little as City won 2-1, but the season could have started to swing in that instance. The other mistake was similar. Again, he attacked a long ball, miscontrolled it, and Rashford was in. Only a questionable decision to shoot stopped United from equalising from that position. That is not to say Delph is a bad defender, far from it. He has done well this campaign. It is just that he still has some elements of his game as a left-back he needs to work on, and this is still a problem position for City. The same can be said for Zinchenko, who has filled in when Delph has been hit with his own injury problems. Zinchenko's conversion to left-back is even more maverick from Guardiola. Prior to this campaign he had generally featured at number 10 for City's youth sides in Ukraine. The 21-year-old is very much a kid and, at that, one who has not played a huge amount of first-team football at the top level. Which is why there is also an error or two in him. Sometimes his positioning is off. Aymeric Laporte was probably given the job on Wednesday because the other options have issues. But Laporte is a centre-back and, as much as people like to think otherwise, they are very different positions. There had been suggestions Mendy could return for this game. It would be a surprise if he is thrown in for a match of this magnitude. That means United will undoubtedly come up against a slightly flawed option in that position. Putting Martial or Rashford up against them would be Mourinho's best option.